Hello, neighbor. I'm Robert Burns, and welcome once again to another edition of Sound Off Louisiana. And I have with me, you've seen him before on our features, Mr. Billy Broussard. And I want to begin by expressing sincere appreciation to Mr. Broussard. He was the guiding force, if you will, that provided us with the necessary guidance that enabled us to produce the extensive feature that we did on Dr. Ryan Haygood, a Shreveport dentist. And as many of you will recall, a central element of that feature, of course, we had the situation that he went to federal court and he was basically cast out in basically being told, hey, you have a completely frivolous case, to such an extent that he was actually assessed $114,000 of the defendant's legal fees, which is a pretty high burden to carry in order to get that assessment, but the defendants got it. But central to that whole episode, one of the most key features, and we're going to repeat the video for you right now. We'll break away and give you a key feature of that was Senate President Cortez, Page Cortez, in a very professional manner, grilling Senator Milkovich about Milkovich's tendency to declare people guilty who had not even had a trial, much less been convicted. And he asked Milkovich point blank, do you believe in innocent until proven guilty? So let's just break away for just a moment and let you see that clip.
You shouldn't say innuendos and things like that. So I'm doing this because I have a reason. Last week, somebody came to the table and all I heard, and I didn't get a chance to ask any questions, and I was going to, but we had to leave. But there were nothing but statements like, these people are crooks, and these people are this, and they're bad, and they're this. But there wasn't one fact that was stated. You believe in innocence till proven guilty?
I do.
That's what this bill's all about.
Okay.
That's what this bill's all about.
So,
yet you're okay. Hold on, I'm not finished. I'll let you know when it's time for you to answer.
Okay, sir.
You are okay with innocent till proven guilty, except for when you can call people out for guilty at the table that aren't really guilty. As much as
it's Dr. Haygood is who you're talking about.
All righty. As you can tell, Senator Cortez did grill Senator Milkovich about his propensity to declare people guilty without even having had a trial. And, you know, as thankful as we were to Mr. Broussard for him having given us the material to guide in on the Haygood matter, as he saw that feature, he has an alternative assessment of the whole concept of innocent until proven guilty. And I'm really glad he contacted us about being able to make a feature involving it, because I have seen numerous comments that Mr. Broussard has made, either as comments on Sound Off Post or on Louisiana Voice Post, which is a blog many of you would know. It's ran by Mr. Tom Aswell, and it will always say innocent until proven guilty. And I often wondered, well, what do you mean by that? It's a fundamental concept that we all know exists. And so I'm going to turn the floor over to Mr. Broussard for him to expand upon what he's been meaning all of those times when he has emphasized innocent until proven guilty. So, Mr. Broussard, it's a thrill to have you back today. Go ahead and let our viewers know why you've emphasized that so many times.
Well, what I truly believe is the fact that, yes, you're innocent until proven guilty, but it depends on who you're up against. When, you know, we go and we find evidence and we bring it to top cops, law enforcement, district attorneys, AG's office, IG, whoever, legislative auditor's office, and you make your case that, hey, look, this is what's going on, and the fact is you're innocent until proven guilty. But the problem is sometimes whoever you up against, they control both sides. They you have like a district attorney. Like in a case that I've dealt with in the past, John DeRozier in Calcasieu Parish. Well, his office represented this drainage district that I had this project I'd done with, and ended up in the courts. So you have the district attorney's office giving counsel to the drainage district for just their everyday services that they provide to the public. Well, the problem is they're also the top cops when it comes down to deciding if there's going to be a prosecution. And state police, in this case, it was an investigation done by state police, and right away, that's what state police did. Went to the district attorney's office for guidance in their investigation. Well, that creates a conflict of interest when the district attorney's office represented the individuals that I'm making the complaint about. You know, even though it's a board or whatever, I say, hey, look, this is what's going on. But they go, state police goes to the district attorney for his advice. So we have it on recording because I got the police report, and the state police said we went to the district attorney's office for guidance, and just, right after that, he said anything to do with FEMA fraud, I mean, we're not even going to discuss that. So if you go to the district attorney's office that represents the individuals that you're supposed to be going investigate, and then the attorney that represents them says, yeah, but don't look into this, or don't, question that. Well, that creates a conflict of interest. So the fact of, oh, you're innocent until proven guilty, yes, but if you can control both sides in regard to a civil matter and the prosecution side, yes, you're innocent until proven guilty, but you can, be the one to have complete power to decide if there's even going to be an investigation, more or less a prosecution. So if they tell state police, like in my case, I eventually made it to the head of a gentleman that was high up at state police, and later on I asked him, I said, what happened? What happened in that investigation? Why did y'all refuse to investigate on and on and on? And I had the conversation with him. He said, look, the truth of the matter is when the prosecutors tell us they're not interested in a prosecution, we're not going to investigate. So they killed the investigation. So that, to be able to say innocent until proven guilty, it's all the control is in the prosecutor's hand on what he's going to do, on his decision on investigating.
So if I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you're saying that it's a little bit like walking into a casino when the cards are marked. You can attempt to try to win the game, but if the deck is already stacked against you, then there's a vested interest to say we're not going to look into that. It is true, you're innocent until proven guilty, and when there's never going to be an attempt to investigate and ultimately prosecute, it may not have quite the meaning that Senator Cortez may have imputed. I don't want to put words into your mouth, but sure, you cannot run around and just say, well, these people did this and these people did that, as Haygood did. He had some very inflammatory words about certain individuals, both that he put into print and uttered verbally. But while it's certainly true they're not guilty of these things, and Milkovich certainly carried what Haygood did to a whole different level, it may not necessarily mean that they are in fact innocent. It may be that, well, nobody bothered with conducting the thorough investigation that would have overturned innocent until proven guilty. Is that a fair assessment of?
Exactly.
And I'm gonna let. Most folk by now know this is Monday, the 18th of May that we're airing this, or that we're producing it. Most folk by now are aware that District Attorney DeRosier has made his announcement that he is not going to seek re-election and is in fact retiring. And I'm going to let everybody know right now that once the new district attorney is sworn into office, I am going to contact whomever that individual turns out to be, because I'm very disturbed by the fact that, or let me put it this way, I'm very disturbed by the way in which Rusty Stutes, who served as an attorney for this particular agency, handled my public records request for his invoices. This is strictly my own opinion, and I want to make that clear. This is my opinion. I believe, John, backing up just a moment, as most of you would know, going back to the 5 years ago, this gentleman was put under a restraining order to inhibit his ability to get public documents, which is something that really, really sticks in my craw badly. He was also prohibited from even carrying on discussions with members of the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury or the Gravity Drainage District. And I believe, and other attorneys have also said, that it's a blatantly illegal restraining order that he was put under. And yet these attorneys did it of their own volition. There was no recorded vote by either the police jury or the Gravity District. I contacted one police jury member, Hal McMillan. I'll give his name. He's no longer on the police jury, but he didn't know what I was talking about. Okay? And this is just my opinion. I want to emphasize that. I firmly believe that John DeRosier is the one who issued the mandate and the order that this gentleman be put under restraining order. And Rusty Stutes, if you're watching this video, if you want to say that's not true, turn over the invoices, because I am convinced that while he's trying to slip through on a technicality that the invoice contain documents of my mental impressions, you know, as far as I'm concerned, you know, give me a break, all right? There is a reason he does not want me getting my hands on those invoices, okay? And I believe that's the reason. Because if you looked at the line items, I am convinced that it will say that he and Sam Gabb being the attorney for the police jury, although he says he had far, far less involvement in all of this than did Rusty Stutes, and I'll take him at his word on that. I wouldn't want to claim any involvement in this either, because it looks horrible to both Stutes and Gabb. But I firmly believe those invoices would reveal the fact that he did so at the direct behest of District Attorney DeRosier. Now, I'm going to let Billy expand a little bit, and I got to go get one little document over here. It snuck away from us in the wind. So, Billy, you keep him at bay while I retrieve that document.
Yes, and I must say, the District Attorney's Office, I believe, they gave the Drainage District proper counsel at the beginning. I have a document here. It's from Gavin Abshire. He emailed me the document on February 24, 2015. My case was before the court, Judge Ritchie's court, back in 2010. And the email that I got was the email from, which was not attorney-client privilege, but I did show this to the judge, but it was an email from Klein-Smith with the District Attorney's Office to Mr. Gavin Abshire and a few other members of the Drainage District Board. And he said, first of all, Gavin, first and foremost, before any action, I would get approval from FEMA reps. These guys are paying the bill. Personally, I would like to see the contractor fulfill his contract. The contractor is to deliver 950 cubic yards of material for the price. Now, simply that. He's admitting in that email what my contract was for. 950 cubic yards of material. This whole case was argued about what was the scope of work. What was the scope of work? Two different things. What was the scope of work that was to be performed, and what was the scope of work money? What was the money supposed to pay for? And like it's always said, follow the money. Well, something had happened, and during the time when we discovered there was additional debris, we went to the Drainage District. We sent emails quoting FAR statutes, explaining to them, and they had their monitors out there, individuals out there claiming to be GOSAP, claiming to be the Drainage District monitors. They all agreed, yes, there's additional debris. Well, a lot of the information I did not get till after been through the courts. Well, one of the documents I got was an email from Kelly Fontenot. Also, who was carbon copying in here was Alan Smith. He's the gentleman that had passed away that represented the police jury. There was a cooperative endeavor agreement. Well, in that cooperative endeavor agreement, she said, if the remaining areas have the same volume of debris, then the district could be looking at another $350,000 to complete the contract. So if you need additional money to complete a project that Mr. Broussard, their contract and the contractors involved was to just clean up all the debris in the bayou. They argued that my contract was, the scope of work was all the debris in the bayou. Judge never ruled that. The judge ruled my contract was for all the hurricane debris. So I've been fighting ever since trying to figure out what was eligible hurricane debris. We've uncovered a couple of different issues there, but the fact is, who is involved? At the very beginning, you have the District Attorney's Office telling them what to do, acknowledging what my contract was for. Then you have Alan Smith that's involved. So you have I wouldn't doubt there's no way that there was a cooperative endeavor agreement between the Drainage District and the parish, and the attorneys are not aware about this additional money and what it was for. And I have to say, through all the court hearings, there was always this gentleman that never was in part of a deposition, but he was always with Rusty Stutes, and I've always understood that was Mr. Klein-Smith. Mr. Klein-Smith said in all these court hearings, I know he was there when there the day when they put the restraining order on me because the judge said, Mr. Klein-Smith, are you here on behalf of the district attorney's office? I said, no, he's not. And he said he was not there. The reason why he brought the judge asked him that question, because I asked the judge, I said, Your Honor, you're putting this restraining order denying me the capabilities of talking to all these different, people at the police jury, people at the drainage district. How about the district attorney's office? That's when he asked the question, are you here on behalf of the district attorney's office? Klein-Smith said no. So Klein-Smith knew that I was going towards the district attorney's office. I met with Senator Mills. Senator Mills requested meetings with the Director of Office of Homeland Security. We went through documents with Senator Mills and Kevin Davis in his office discussing what was the additional money for. It was always about this additional money. We never could put our fingerprints on it. Interesting also, Jeff Landry, which is now our Attorney General, was my attorney. So he's the one they asked for discovery. We never did have those documents to put our finger on what that additional money was for. So after meetings with Senator Mills saying, okay, give us, there's emails between Senator Mills' office and GOSAP. He's asking, I want you to come in and explain to us what this additional money was for. It was called PW version 1. We had the meetings right there in Breaux Bridge, Senator Mills' office. I showed documents to Kevin Davis, the director then of GOSAP. Said, look at this. Isn't this true? Yes, yes. I said, well, why did you produce these documents and sign to him? Immediately, he throws his hands up. He said, we can fix this. I said, Ben Plyer, which was the attorney for GOSAP at the time, Ben Plyer is the one that put that together. I said, those documents, which are seen here, you can witness this. This was the motion of summary judgment. What's Exhibit L?
Affidavit of Ben Plyer.
Now, GOSAP has said in the past, we got this relationship with the legislative auditor. They'll put their fingers in the close their eyes, put their fingers in the ears.
Which I want to point out to this day, in my opinion, remains the single best sound-off feature we've ever produced. Once again, I owe thanks to Billy Broussard. I assume it had to be God. I literally mean that. Because I was aware that the audio existed, but I was beginning to become convinced during that. And we're going to give you the link for that meeting we had with the Legislative Auditor's Office, but I was starting to give up hope that the opportunity would ever present itself for him to use the audio. And then all of a sudden, as if coming down from heaven, Mr. Moorhead uttered the words that, well, by your own admission, we are the scales. And I guess the light bulb went off, and that's when Billy Broussard pulled out the recording. He said, let me show you what I think of your scales, okay? I'm sorry to have interrupted, but that is still the single best sound-off feature we've ever produced, in my opinion, because that came straight from the then Deputy Director of GOSEP, Mark DeBosier, and he had said, we can just get them to put their fingers in their ears, close their eyes, and we make sure there's no fingerprints on it. And I'm going to tell you something, Moorhead's explanation afterwards doesn't fly at all, because if it is as he said it is, they're just going to override, then why would you want an absence of fingerprints? The reality is there ought to be fingerprints all over it, if that's really what you're doing and everything's a transparent and above board. So I just had to put that little bit in. I didn't mean to interject. But
I mean, you're right. That day there, I tell you what, he was... When I played that video, you talk about it was like a catfish on a pole. He was jerking over there. I mean, it's supposed to be the checks and balances. And Mr. Moorhead, I've had multiple meetings with him before then, and he had arrogant statements he made. You remember we were there with?
Yes.
Mr. Papera called in sick that day. I don't know how often Mr. Papera calls in sick, but he interestingly called in sick that day. But he was there at a meeting before, and we sat there and we showed him some documents. Mr. Moorhead had no clue where the scope of work was even performed. He had to ask us. And then I told him different things. He said, well, there's no way that could have happened because the FEMA guy, which I don't know, FEMA guy, FEMA employee, FEMA contractor, whoever, Mr. not Kevin Davis, Mr. Kennedy.
It's bad when I'm remembering these names now.
Dan Kennedy. He said there's no way because Dan Kennedy signed off on this. Interesting if you're from Calcasieu Parish. A lot of people know Dan Kennedy. Dan Kennedy lives in a neighborhood not far from Indian Bayou. He has private property that was affected by this bayou over there in Moss Bluff, Indian Bayou. His neighborhood had been flooding for years. So it is something when you clean up behind a disaster and the individuals that have personal interest in some of these projects. I mean, they have private property, that are connected to some of these waterways that are flooding their neighborhoods. I don't know if his house was ever flooded, but I know that neighborhood has. So he said, no, Dan Kennedy signed off it. There's no way. So that is law. That's gospel. If Dan Kennedy said it. Now, I had a conversation with Dan Kennedy before. I said, Dan Kennedy, when I called to find out what his address was so I could subpoena him for a court hearing, and I found out, he said, look, I don't have a dog in this fight. But Dan Kennedy also was the one involved with, you asked me, helping. I'm going to use the term colluding. But again, innocent until proven guilty. Can't get an investigation. But the thing is he was involved in when they realized there was additional debris out there on that bayou. You got to remember, too, there was a class action lawsuit. I know I'm all over the place, but there was the Moss Bluff people know what I'm talking about. There was a class action lawsuit because in 2005, Hurricane Rita hit. 2006 was their 9/11. They had, I've seen articles, water everywhere. They flooded out Moss Bluff. And of course, what did the Drainage District want to do? They wanted to try to figure out how they can blame that on an act of God. Not that it was their neglect that they, didn't maintain these bayous, especially Indian bayous, since God's creation. But the truth is, that's what they wanted to put that spin on it, that, hey, and the attorney that was representing in that class action, his name slipped, but he is in some of these depositions when we're asking the Drainage District questions about what happened on this bayou. So me and him had a conversation. He said, Billy, you have to understand. He said, this bayou flooded a lot of people, a lot of constituents. He said, if it's proven what caused that disaster of all these people flooding, what percentage of it was hurricane debris and what percentage of it was neglect and had been there before, made a difference on their claims. So just to say, there was a lot of different individuals involved, but what happens is, back to the subject, innocent until proven guilty. When the district attorney's office represents these municipalities, and then on the back end, if anybody committed any type of crimes, well, then it's back to the district attorney's office, because his office, he's the top cop in that district. But it creates a conflict of interest because state police will go to him and ask for direction on the investigation of the individuals he represents. And in this case, we got where he directed them practically what and what not to do. But he knew, at least his office knew, Kevin Kleinsmith knew what was going on. He knew about the additional money. He knew about the additional debris. He knew about the cooperative endeavor agreement, that they needed this additional money to finish the contract. So this whole case I have where the judge said, and that I have it right here, well, we were talking about a document. He said, well, the problem is this is different than everything else that I have seen. Everything else that I have seen about any agreement to pay anything other than $204,000, everything has been consistent throughout. And that's why I came to the conclusion that I did, that there was no genuine issue of material fact, and I granted the motion of summary judgment that the agreement was what it was. $204,000 was the maximum amount they agreed to pay. But all of a sudden, we got documents after the case was before the court, because they withheld them from us, about additional money, asking for additional $350,000, which I ended up doing so much more debris that they directed. So there's additional money that they're asking for in a cooperative endeavor agreement, additional money that they went to FEMA and obtained that was ear tagged for, which you'll later get from Mr. Mark DeBosia, the same one that signed off on this project, which was Mr. Mark DeBosia. I gotta say, we had our different issues back and forth, but he came clean right before he left. He put a cooperative endeavor agreement. He put a chronology document together that when I got my hands on it, and he said that this is Mark DeBosia emailing it to Ben Plyer, the same one that produced the smoking gun that his fingerprints all over it personally, an affidavit that misled the court about that additional money. He also, Mark DeBosia, after meetings at his office, we went through different things. He finally went back, put this chronology document together. In regards to version 1, he said the amount would have $410,000 for contract. And it says scope for more contract debris. So the thing is, we never could put our fingerprints on it through the courts. And that's what bothers me about my attorney also, my original attorney, Jeff Landry. Jeff Landry knows the documents he asked for. He knows that they provided us information to mislead us what that additional money was for. And yes, they were, my attorney at the time, also Miss Robin Sylvester. She tried to hammer him, trying to, as far as I know, doing the best she could, trying to figure out, put her fingerprints on what that additional money was for. But they lied. They misled us about that additional money.
And I want to emphasize one thing. You know, people will hear that, well, Billy lost at the trial level, he lost on the appeals level, and the Supreme Court refused to hear the matter. Get it out of your mind that there was a full-blown trial here. The district court granted a motion for summary judgment, which was then appealed to the third court, the third court of appeals, third district court of appeals, and they upheld the motion for summary judgment. But you just heard him read the judge saying that, well, this comes as news to me. I didn't know anything about this additional $350,000. I was under the impression that it was $204,000, and that's why I issued my ruling that I did on the motion for summary judgment. So there can be a perception out there that, well, you had your shot. You know, you lost in the district court, you lost on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, and the Supreme Court said, the heck with you, we're not even going to look at it. But it's not as if there was a full-blown civil trial on this. They managed to get it out, and I think he's provided pretty compelling evidence, not just the material that he's spoken about here today, but emails that said we've got to get these GPS sites to disappear. She even said, we're talking about Kelly Fontenot now. She even said, I'm going to pull this off. That's not the word she used. I'm setting up my arguments. What arguments are we talking about? FEMA declaring the debris to be ineligible, okay? And she says in the email, I didn't say this, she did. She said, I'm formulating my arguments with your help, of course. Now, who is that she's saying, I'll need your help, of course? She's referring to Dan Kennedy, the very one that John Moorhead over at the Legislative Auditor's Office wants to hang his whole hat on, that he signed off, that there was no ineligible debris removed from the bayou. Now, the reality is, at this point, I don't think anybody argues that there was an ungodly amount of ineligible debris. But you have Kelly Fontenot saying that, well, we'll get reimbursed whether it's ineligible or not. Now, I don't know whether she means through GOSEP or through FEMA or a combination of the two. But to me, when nobody is willing to look at the fact that she's sending out emails saying we got to find a way to get these GPS sites to disappear, her words, not mine, there is serious issues that should have been looked into, and nobody's done it, okay? For obvious reasons, the district attorney would not be inclined to look into this for the reasons that Billy has presented. But I think you carry it to a whole new level when you're so paranoid or so afraid of somebody looking into it that you put him under a restraining order to keep him from getting even more He's already gotten enough that's pretty doggone damning, okay? And the reality is, I think that Preparer is aware that there's damning documents. I believe Stephen Street knows it. But you've seen the kind of approach that Stephen Street has taken with regard to this matter. Now, we're going to go ahead and start to wrap it up. Another video is getting a little bit long. Billy, if you got some concluding remarks you'd like to make. But again, I want to thank you because I've seen Billy repeatedly make that commentary, innocent until proven guilty. And I've always thought, well, we don't need to be reminded of that. Everybody knows. That's as Senator Cortez said, it's a fundamental right that any citizen has. You are innocent until proven guilty. I have finally found out why he hammers that home so hard, and it's basically that he's got a whole nother take on this whole concept of innocent until proven guilty. So with that, Billy, would you like to wrap up with some concluding remarks?
Yeah, I would just like to say something to the constituents of Calcasieu Parish. The individuals that throw their name in the hat in regards to running for district attorney, I would ask y'all to ask them, if they become district attorney, how are they going to handle the situation? Because I am going to ask them because the district attorney killed the idea that state police, there was that meeting with Kevin Davis. I mean, come on, I'm some guy down the bayou. I'm not, who am I to call a meeting and say, look, I want the director of Office of Homeland Security to meet me over there in Calcasieu Parish so we can have this meeting with the district attorney. But the meeting happened, and it was all to talk about the money, the additional money, and the district attorney sat there, and Kevin Davis told him, look, y'all asked for the money. We didn't get y'all the money. It was additional money for this additional contract work that Mr. Broussard performed. And it's our understanding y'all took some of this money and did something with it way down the bayou that if that's what y'all did, FEMA's going to want that money back. Well, the thing is, we walked out of that meeting. State police was there. There's emails to support. I'm trying to remember that gentleman's name, the state police.
Hebert?
Michael Hebert. Ran for sheriff. Lost.
Oh, it's bad. I'm having to come up with these names. That's Kennedy I've bailed you out on, and Hebert I've bailed you out on.
Hebert ran for sheriff down in Cameron. He lost, thank God. Those constituents, talk about if there was any disasters, any cover-ups they would have had. But bottom line, I asked Hebert, I said, hey, Michael Hebert, are you going to add in your report what just happened in this meeting? I mean, we got the district attorney, U.S. State Police, Kevin Davis, and a team. There was like 4 people. Interesting too, in October of 2015 was that meeting. The same month that DeRosier hunting $5,000, demanding $5,000 in gift cards. So any of you gentlemen that are investigating, if there is an investigation in regards to those gift cards, I was in that office with that team of people. There was about 5 people. The same day, I say the same month that DeRosier's walking in the other office from what's been reported in other media stories, demanding right away $5,000 in gift cards.
I'll tell you what, we'll link that article and we'll blow up, put in quotes, that segment of the article that he's referencing. It was in the Washington Post. We'll blow up that section where she says, I didn't get the impression he was asking, he was ordering. You will find $5,000 in gift cards in this office, even though she said, I don't know that we have that many. I don't know what she's supposed to do if they don't. But he made it crystal clear, according to her, that, look, you're going to get $5,000 in gift cards. End of story. Go ahead.
So, bottom line, in that meeting, I'm hoping what happened in that meeting, and those individuals, they're still alive, that the next district attorney will say, well, what happened in that meeting? You know, for the district attorney, I mean, here's some individuals coming from Baton Rouge, the director of Office of Homeland Security. I mean, this gentleman is right underneath the governor. Comes over there and tells the district attorney something completely contrary to what happened in court. But the district attorney's office, especially Mr. Kleinsmith, knew what that additional money was for. He was the attorney for the drainage district. But yet they pretend that they didn't know, and then they stood by, let them hang me with restraining orders and all. Let them hang me with the judgments that they put on me. Other judgments saying I was making frivolous claims, and the judge is hollering, that additional money had nothing to do with you. When it's all said and done, they go, no, well, the truth of the matter is, even though there was affidavits produced from Ben Bly, the attorney, that, oh no, if there was a request at that time for that amount of money, that would have been denied. No, the truth is, there was a request. It was accepted by FEMA. They obligated this additional money to them to pay for the additional contract work. But to go back to the constituents, ask the district attorneys, these gentlemen running for district attorneys, what are they going to do about that? Or is he going to order state police, or at least give the state police the green light to say, look, you can go ahead and give Mr. Broussard what he's asking for, and that's to finish the report about what happened in that meeting that day. Now, whoever's doing the investigation, maybe you'll, not completely say that $5,000 had nothing to do with what happened in that meeting that day. Not sure, but you might want to look into it.
All righty. Well, Mr. Broussard, I can't thank you again enough for your guidance. This man, for just a guy that runs around, cleaning up knockdown trees and whatnot, I have come to find out that you have quite a bit of correspondence with members of the legislature, and on both sides of the aisle, I might add.
Oh yeah, I mean, I doubt if the gentleman that was, the story about the Good Samaritan, I was thinking about it on the way here. The person that was in the ditch didn't care who it was that was helping him.
There you go.
I have a friend of mine, he said, you drink tea with anybody. Well, the fact is, there's a lot of good legislators on both sides, and I'm not going to say, well, oh, he's a Republican, or this one's a Democrat. There's on both sides. I mean, I've sat down with the governor about this before, and I'm hoping too, Mr. Governor, that letter that was sent to you by Senator Mills, I'd like you to give me an answer about that. I mean, I've had meetings with you. Other legislators, from what I understand, discussed this with you. I've had lobbyists I've hired. My witness also is Jeff Landry. I know he has a conflict of interest in this case, but I'm really asking for some sort of answer. And, I believe, from other friends of mine that we share some of the same friends from Lafayette area, that you would really consider that letter, and I would hope that you would cut the noose that they put around my neck. I mean, everybody fights for this prison reform and all, but then there's situations like in this where an attorney from the governor's office, now this was before we have the governor we have now, but they hang you producing false information, and when it's said and done, they don't want to acknowledge the fact that, hey, you know what? If we hung this innocent man, maybe we should let him go. So the prison reform, I know it's a big political talking point. I hear it on both sides of the aisle, from Donald Trump to movie stars to our governor. So I would hope that letter that Senator Mills sent you, that you would consider it and maybe schedule a meeting with us to figure out if we can fix this problem that has been caused by some bureaucrats that maybe had their fingerprints on different things and were worried about their own necks. But I look forward to receiving that phone call, and I appreciate it.
Well, and there again, I was saying your discussions with members of the legislature from both sides, because it was that kind of communication that enabled him to give me the guidance, which I very much appreciate, that I really needed to delve into some recent filings involving Dr. Ryan Haygood. And boy, were you right, or whomever provided you with that guidance from the legislature. There was some interesting filings regarding the State Board of Dentistry and a one Dr. C. Ryan Haygood in Shreveport. And I really appreciate your guidance to help me get that post. And I'm glad that as you saw it, you said, well, I have something else I want to say about this whole concept about innocent until proven guilty. And I think he's done an excellent job today. None of this was rehearsed. We did it in literally, and he did bring some documentation, but it was literally done on the fly. So thank you so much for making the trip to Baton Rouge today, and hope you've enjoyed this Sound Off feature. One last thing, we can give you an update. We're going to do it in a separate feature regarding Mr. Broussard's complaint with the Office of Disciplinary Counsel. Actually had a number of complaints, but only the one with Robin Sylvester remains active, and so we're going to give you an update on that within the next couple of weeks. So with that, Mr. Broussard, thank you so much for making your way over here. This is Robert Burns with Sound Off Louisiana, thanking you so much for your dedicated viewership, and we look forward to bringing you our next Sound Off Louisiana feature in the very near future. Thank you so much.